They kicked me out with nothing but a garbage bag of clothes and a reputation shredded by my brother's lies. 17 years old, disowned, and guilty of crimes I never committed. It didn't happen all at once, but that's how people like to tell it, sudden and cinematic. But in real life, ruin is slower. It's a leak in the ceiling that nobody fixes until the whole roof caves in. My brother was the leak, and I was the ceiling. Darren, 2 years older, golden hair, golden smile, golden boy. He could charm the devil into a confession and still walk out wearing wings. My parents adored him. He played varsity football, called our mom princess, and always helped dad with yard work on Sundays. Me? I read books. I asked too many questions. I saw through people. That made me dangerous. The first crack came in sophomore year. Someone slashed the tires on Coach Mendel's truck. Darren hinted at a name in front of our dad. Mine. I laughed when I heard. I had been in the library that night. But Dad didn't laugh. He gave me that look, the one that meant, you always find a way to disappoint. Then came the wallet incident. Darren lost $50. Mom found it under my mattress. I don't know how it got there. Swear to God. Maybe he planted it. Maybe I was an idiot for not checking my own damn bed. But they believed him. I got grounded for a month and stripped of the only thing that brought me peace, my weekend shifts at the record store. You need to think about the kind of person you're becoming, my dad said, arms crossed like a judge at sentencing. A liar. A thief. What's next? That became the household narrative. What's next? By the time I hit senior year, I could feel the tension in the walls. Every cough I made was suspicious. Every locked door a red flag. Darren, meanwhile, had started drinking. Parties. Girls. Dad caught him stumbling and drunk once and helped him to bed like a wounded soldier. He's just under a lot of pressure, Mom said. Pressure. Right. Then came the rumor that broke me. One Monday morning, the school was buzzing. I saw the stares, the whispers, the kind of silence that smothers. By third period, I knew. Someone had said I'd gotten Lisa Granger pregnant. Lisa, who I barely even talked to. She denied it, later, to me directly, crying. Said Darren told people I bragged about it. Made it up to boost my cred. I wanted to scream. I came home and confronted him. He laughed in my face. Relax, he said. It's high school. Grow a pair. I lost it. Through a lamp. Dad walked in just in time to see the glass explode. And just like that, I became violent, unstable, dangerous. 3 nights later, Darren staged his masterpiece. He came to the dinner table pale and shaking, said I'd stolen his Adderall, that I was selling pills at school. I couldn't even get words out before Mom started crying. Dad stood up so fast his chair toppled. I remember thinking, this is it. You're done, he said. Just like that. Pack your things. You don't live here anymore. Mom tried to say something, but it wasn't protest. It was guilt dressed up as concern. She looked at me like a mother looks at roadkill. I tried to argue. Beg. I was 17. No money. No place to go. But they didn't hear me. Didn't want to. The story they'd chosen was more comforting than the truth, that their favorite son was a manipulative bastard, and I was his sacrifice. I packed in silence. My hands shook as I shoved shirts and jeans into a torn garbage bag. No suitcase. No farewell. Not even the dog looked at me. Darren stood in the doorway, arms crossed, a smirk hidden behind sympathy. Maybe this will be good for you, he said. I said nothing. But something inside me cracked and hardened. It wasn't rage. Not yet. It was the realization that no one was coming to save me. Not then. Maybe not ever. The front door slammed behind me like a gavel. That night I slept on a bench behind the community center, using my hoodie as a pillow and my shame as a blanket. Cars passed. Streetlights buzzed. The sky stretched empty above me, and for the first time in my life, I understood what it meant to be truly alone. But I also knew one thing with terrifying clarity. If I survived this, I would never let them forget what they did. Looking back, that night felt like the first breath after drowning, painful, sharp, and unforgettable. Looking back, that night felt like the first breath after drowning, painful, sharp, and unforgettable. I didn't wake up the next morning with some grand plan or cinematic epiphany. I woke up with a kink in my neck, frozen fingers, and the taste of metal in my mouth. My first conscious thought was, don't go back. Not because of pride, I didn't have any left, but because I knew if I stepped back through that door, I'd be confirming their worst assumptions. That I was weak, that I needed them, that they were right. So I started walking. By noon, I was standing in line at a shelter that smelled like bleach, despair, and old socks. They gave me a cot, a tuna sandwich, and a pamphlet about getting your life back. I read it twice, front to back. Hope was a distant planet, but instructions. I could follow instructions. The next few weeks were a collage of scraped-together routines. I worked odd jobs, washing dishes, sweeping floors, unloading boxes. Anything for a few bucks and a sandwich. I learned which gas stations didn't mind me cleaning up in their bathrooms. I learned how to fake a smile when someone looked at me like I was a stray dog they didn't want to hit with their car. Eventually, I found the diner. Patty's Place. Neon sign half flickering, greasy windows, the kind of establishment that served coffee with a side of heartburn. Patty herself was a 40-something ex-smoker with a voice like gravel and a heart she tried to hide behind sarcasm. She caught me loitering outside, eyeing a half-eaten sandwich in the trash. "You hungry or just nostalgic for moldy rye?" she asked, not unkindly. "I can work," I said. "For food." She squinted at me. "You any good with a mop?" I was hired on the spot. Cash under the table, 3 nights a week, plus whatever I could carry home from the fridge at closing time. It wasn't much, but it was mine. I signed up for my GED at a local adult ed center. Nights I wasn't working, I was studying. During breaks at the diner, I'd quiz myself on algebra with flashcards I made from index paper and ink pens people left behind. Patty once caught me and said, "Jesus, you're like one of those lab rats that doesn't know it's already escaped." The days blurred together. Sleep was a luxury. My hands were always cold. But inside me, something solidified, a core of steel that had no interest in pity or revenge, only survival. The real test came about 8 months in. I ran into Darren. It was pure chance, or maybe fate, if you believe in that sort of thing. He was coming out of a liquor store, hoodie pulled low, pupils like dinner plates. I froze mid-step. He didn't see me at first. He looked thinner, twitchier, less golden boy, more cracked porcelain. Then he spotted me, paused, smirked. Well, if it isn't the prodigal loser. I expected rage. I got something colder, indifference. I looked him up and down, shrugged. "You still lying, or just stealing now?" He flinched, just slightly. "You don't get to talk to me like that. I don't talk to junkies." Enjoy the spiral. I walked away. That night, I passed my last GED exam. From there, the road wasn't easy, but it had a direction. I picked up a second job at a shipping warehouse. Found a roommate, Jace, a recovering addict with tattoos of every woman who ever broke his heart. We rented a roach-infested studio and split ramen packs like war rations. Somehow it worked. 2 years in, I applied to community college. Personal essay prompt. Describe a challenge you've overcome. I stared at the screen for an hour before typing. They kicked me out because they believed someone who lied better than I told the truth. I got accepted. I worked days, studied nights, scraped together tuition with scholarships, side gigs, and sheer stubbornness. I watched kids whose biggest problem was Wi-Fi passwords complain about finals. I sat in the back, took notes, said nothing. I didn't belong, and I knew it, but I wasn't leaving. Darren. He got arrested for credit card fraud a year later. My mom wrote a letter to the judge pleading for leniency. I know because the local paper quoted her. "He's a good boy who made a mistake. He just needs support." I laughed so hard I nearly cracked a rib. Me? I made Dean's List. I never told them. They didn't ask. But I kept the clipping from that article, taped it to my desk, right above my course planner. Just a little reminder of who they chose. Of the version of me they wanted to believe. Sometimes, I'd lie in bed at night and imagine walking back into that house, degree in hand, suit pressed, success dripping off me like perfume. I pictured their faces, their regret, their hollow apologies. But fantasy was a luxury I couldn't afford. I wasn't chasing dreams. I was running from ghosts with my fists clenched around every ounce of pain they gave me. And I wasn't done yet. I didn't need revenge. I needed proof that they were wrong, and that I was everything they feared I could be if I ever got free. I didn't need revenge. I needed proof that they were wrong, and that I was everything they feared I could be if I ever got free. Community college became university. University became obsession. I majored in finance because money, unlike people, follows rules. It rewards discipline, not charm. You can track it, grow it, control it. And I crave control more than air. By 24, I had my degree, a tailored suit, and a chip on my shoulder the size of a continent. I took a job as a junior analyst at a boutique firm, worked 14-hour days, made coffee for people who couldn't spell my name, and watched carefully. Success, I learned, wasn't about being the smartest in the room. It was about recognizing who was faking it. Within 2 years, I was promoted. Not because I smiled or networked, but because I predicted a market dip before our VP did and saved a client 7 figures. After that, people started listening. I took night courses in programming and built a side platform, a little AI-driven investment tool, mostly for myself, until a former professor turned angel investor saw it and offered funding. "You're rough," he said, "but you're the right kind of rough." That's how my company started, in a borrowed office space above a Chinese bakery. I called it Recurve Capital because everything about me had been under pressure but never broken. Within 2 years, we were managing small portfolios. By year 4, we were advising high-net-worth clients who didn't ask about my background because my ROI spoke louder than my resume. I was 30 and finally, breathing clean air. The past? Still there. Always there. Like an old injury that flares up when the weather turns. I kept tabs, though. Of course I did. Darren had been in and out of rehab, jail, couch surfing through friends who hadn't yet figured out his charm was just sugar coating on rot. Last I heard, he was back with my parents, jobless, getting back on his feet, which was family code for bleeding them dry. They hadn't reached out. Not once. I assumed they'd buried me like a bad pet. Then, one morning, everything changed with a ping. I was sipping coffee, reviewing quarterly reports, when a headline popped into my feed. A local business journal had done a feature on up-and-coming entrepreneurs from the region. And there I was. Picture, interview quotes, the works. I hadn't wanted the publicity, but my PR team insisted. Brand visibility, they said. I didn't think much of it. Until the email came. Subject line, from Mom and Dad. For a minute, I just stared at it. Like it might explode. My assistant came in asking about a budget revision. I waved her off, closed the door and opened it. "Dear Alex, we saw your article. We're so proud of you. We had no idea how far you'd come. We think about you every day. It broke our hearts to lose you. Please let us reconnect. We'd love to meet, just talk. No pressure. Love always, Mom and Dad." No mention of the night they tossed me like trash. No mention of Darren. No apology. I read it twice, then deleted it. But they didn't stop. A week later, a letter arrived. Handwritten. My mother's loopy script, shaky in places. She said she missed me, that she prayed for me, that Darren had been going through a hard time, and they were struggling, that they'd be honored to see me, to celebrate my success. She even included a photo, the 3 of them at some park, smiling like nothing had ever happened. I didn't sleep that night. I'd spent so long climbing out of the pit they threw me into that I didn't know how to feel standing at the edge of it again. Part of me wanted to ignore them forever. Another part, the one still 17 and freezing behind the community center, wanted to look them in the eye and make them see me. So I agreed to meet. Neutral ground. A small cafe uptown. I arrived early, took the corner booth, and waited. When they walked in, I almost didn't recognize them. My mother looked smaller. My father, older, like the years had gnawed at his spine. They smiled like they were greeting a long-lost friend, not a son they had exiled. "Alex," my mother said, reaching for me. I didn't move. We sat. The silence hung heavy. They asked about my business. I gave short, clinical answers. My father talked about how proud he was, how hard he always knew I worked. My mother nodded, teary-eyed. "You've become such a strong man," she said. I stared at her dead-eyed. "Strong enough to survive what you did." That shut them up. For a moment. Then came the pivot. My father cleared his throat. "We're not doing so well. The house, it's under a second mortgage. Darren's situation, he made some mistakes." I didn't blink. "What does this have to do with me?" They squirmed. "We hoped," my mother said, voice trembling, "that maybe you could help. Just a little. You've done so well, and we." I laughed. Not kindly. "You threw me out," I said. "Believed every lie he told. You left me on the street." My father stiffened. "We were trying to protect the family." "No," I said. "You were protecting your favorite. And now he's draining you dry. And you want a transfusion from the son you abandoned." They tried to argue, beg, rationalize. I stood up. "You didn't come here to reconnect. You came to collect." I left without another word. Outside, the wind bit at my face. But I'd never felt warmer. Some wounds don't bleed. They calcify, harden, become part of the bone. Some wounds don't bleed. They calcify, harden, become part of the bone. After that cafe ambush, I thought that was the end. That I'd delivered the verdict, slammed the door, and left them to their self-made purgatory. But guilt is a tenacious parasite. It crawls in through memories, gnaws on your calm, whispers things like, what if you misunderstood? What if they've changed? 2 weeks later, I received a voicemail. It was my mother. Soft, hoarse, rehearsed. Alex, I just wanted to say, I'm sorry. For everything. We didn't handle things right. I see that now. Darren, he manipulated all of us. But we were the adults. We failed you. Please, if you can find it in your heart to forgive us. Forgiveness? It sounded like a coupon they wanted to redeem. No expiration date. No mention of interest accrued. Still, I listened to the message 5 times. Saved it. Then came the letter from Darren. Handwritten, surprisingly neat. He was in county jail. Again. This time for assault and attempted theft. He didn't sugarcoat it. I messed up. Again. You were right about everything, he wrote. I lied about you because I couldn't stand how much better you were at everything. They believed me because it was easier than facing the truth. I read that line 3 times. He said he was sorry, that he was getting clean, that he wanted to make amends. Proper ones, not just words. He asked if I'd come visit. I didn't respond. Instead, I sat in my office at 2 a.m., lights off, the city glowing beyond the windows, and let the weight of all that silence crush me. I thought about 17-year-old me, cold, scared, hungry, wondering what the hell he did to deserve exile. I wondered what visiting would prove. That I'd won. That he was finally beneath me. It felt hollow. So I did nothing. A few weeks passed. My business was thriving. I had a team of 25, a sleek office, clients that smiled when I walked in. I gave talks now, industry panels, alumni events. One night, after a keynote about resilience in adversity, I looked at the applause and felt nothing, because I knew who hadn't clapped, who never would. Then, an envelope arrived. No return address. Inside, a copy of my baby photo, me in a blue blanket, eyes wide, fists curled, and a note in my mother's handwriting. You deserved better parents. I'm sorry we weren't them. No ask. No plea. Just that. I stared at it for a long time. The next day, I drove back to my old neighborhood. Not to the house, that shrine of denial, but to the community center where I once slept behind the dumpsters. It had been renovated, cleaned up, renamed. I walked through the front doors and asked if they needed funding. They almost cried on the spot. I didn't tell them my story. Not then. I wrote a check, set up a trust, and when they asked what name to list for the donation, I smiled. Doesn't matter. Just make sure the kids know they're not garbage. After that, I started a foundation for displaced youth. I called it the Recurve Project because damage isn't the end. Sometimes it's the forge. I gave interviews, told my story publicly, not out of bitterness, but clarity. The past wasn't a wound anymore. It was a scar I wore openly. One night, after a televised interview, I got a text. Blocked number. No ID. You were always stronger than me. I hope the next life is kinder to us. I never found out if it was from Darren. I didn't want to. What mattered was that I'd stopped living in reaction to them. I never sent money. Never went home. But I stopped hating them. Not because they deserved peace, but because I did. I didn't return for revenge. I returned to make peace with the version of me they tried to bury. I didn't return for revenge. I returned to make peace with the version of me they tried to bury. The truth is, I used to fantasize about the perfect ending. You know the type. They beg, I rise, they cry, I walk away with a smirk and violin music swelling in the background. But life, real life, doesn't offer neat narrative arcs. It gives you raw edges and unanswered questions. After the foundation took off, I started getting invitations. Schools, shelters, youth conferences. I became someone people pointed to when they needed proof that survival was possible. That pain could be repurposed. And I gave them that proof, in pressed suits and carefully worded speeches. But something always tugged at the edges. Like a sore tooth you can't help pressing. I kept thinking about that letter, the one from Darren. The apology. The humility in it that didn't quite fit the brother I remembered. So, months later, against every instinct honed in the fire of my own history, I scheduled a visit. County jail hadn't changed much. Same scent of bleach and sweat. Same indifferent guards who called everyone buddy while eyeing you like contraband. They led me to a sterile visitor room. Plastic chairs. Plexiglass divider. Phone on the wall. And then he walked in. Darren looked worn. The charm was still there, under the layers of fatigue and failure, but it had dulled. His hair was thinner. His eyes were shadowed. He looked like a man who'd run out of stories to tell himself. He picked up the phone. I did the same. "Hey," he said. I didn't answer. He stared for a while. "You look good," he added, because small talk survives even in jail. "What do you want?" I finally said. "Closure," he replied. "Not money. Not a favor. Just a minute of honesty." I let him talk. He told me how it started. How jealous he was. How threatened. "You were smarter, quieter, harder to manipulate," he said. "I knew they'd love me more if I painted you as dangerous." And it worked. Until it didn't. He told me about the years after. The spirals. The shame. "You think they loved me unconditionally, but they didn't. They loved the lie. When I stopped selling it, they stopped buying." He said he was sorry. Not for the first time, but this time he didn't cry or beg. He just looked tired. I nodded. "That's all I needed," I said. "To know you knew what you did." "I did," he whispered. "I just didn't think it would cost me everything." We didn't hug. Didn't say goodbye. I left him there, behind glass, behind time, and didn't look back. Outside, the sun was setting. The sky smeared with orange and regret. And I realized I felt something close to peace. Not forgiveness, that's a gift, but release. The last thread to that life had frayed and snapped. Months passed. I focused on the foundation. We opened a second center, then a third. I hired former street kids, survivors, fighters, people who knew the sound of a door slamming behind you and the silence that follows. Then, one night, I stood in front of a packed hall. A fundraiser gala. My team had pulled out all the stops, string lights, jazz quartet, filet mignon on silver plates. I should have felt proud, but I felt something deeper. I stepped up to the mic. "I'm not here to tell you a story about resilience," I began. "I'm here to tell you a story about abandonment and what you do when no one comes to find you." I told them about the bench behind the community center, the diner, the notebook full of algebra flashcards, the rage, the cold, the silence. And then I told them about survival, about building something not in spite of pain, but with it, brick by brick, wound by wound. They called me a liar, I said, a thief, a failure. They were wrong, but they weren't the last ones to name me. I did that. I ended with a quote I once saw scrawled on a bathroom wall in a shelter. "When no one opens the door, become the architect." Standing there, to the sound of applause, real, not imagined, I knew I had become mine. The past didn't own me anymore. It didn't even rent space. I never went back to that house. Never called them again. But I kept the baby photo. Not because I missed what was, but because it reminded me of what I had to fight to protect. The kid no one chose to believe, but who learned to believe in himself. I didn't go back to heal. I went back to make sure the fire they lit in me never burns anyone else the way it burned me. Thanks for sticking around and listening to my story. And if you haven't already, be sure to subscribe and click the bell so you don't miss more true life stories just like this one.